Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Those Were the Days, the show that talks about old TV with a new perspective. My name is Amy, and this week we're wrapping up Jumping the Shark. And we're going to do that by talking about one of my favorite shows, I Dream of Jeannie. More specifically, the two-part episode, oh Lord, and I forgot the title of it, Killing It. Who's going to be the bride? It's an ugly title. It's not good, is the problem. Anyway, I wish I had done this better, and I wish I had some help in this episode. So for my first wish, I'm going to wish that Steven was here.
Okay, let me get this straight. A genie has to live in a bottle for years and years until she's let out and has to serve a master. But she can leave that master at any time when she needs to go back to her family, who's an actually ruling body of a small country near Russia. They can do magic, but they don't have masters. Got it. Makes perfect sense.
And I wish that Audie was here.
Well, Baba had them 40 teeth. Sherazad had 1,000 tails. But Master, you're in luck, cause up your sleeve, you gotta braid it. Wait. We've got our imaginary producer in my ear. What? Oh, I Dream of Jeannie. Okay. And which episode? Oh, the two-parter with the weird fake element. What was it? Adamantium? No. Tritanium? No. Unobtainium. Whatever. I'm sure one of you remembers.
And of course, I wish for Travis.
In the tradition of Basenji, I will now light this with my mouth. Wait, no, that's my other character. I'm sorry.
So yes, I Dream of Jeannie, the two-part episode, Guess Who's Going to Be a Bride. So as we learned from Steven, the premise of this show, in case you are somehow unfamiliar, is that astronaut Tony Nelson, when he lands in his little pod, lands off target, he winds up on a deserted island where he finds a bottle that contains a genie. Jeannie instantly falls in love with him, and he wishes to be rescued, which she does, and also gets back in her bottle and rolls it into his bag and goes home with him. Now, the thing is, he spends a lot of this show trying to get rid of her. Is like most of the run of the show, he is trying to get rid of her. Nobody knows she exists with the exception of Roger, who I love. And so here we are in the final season, and sort of like with Travis's episode, the writing was kind of already on the wall. But we've been through almost 5 years of them not being married. And Standards and Practices was having it no more. Nobody wanted this. No one was interested in this storyline. But here we are. So we talked last week about how important a killer opening theme song is. This one is iconic, as is the animation. All right, boys. So, what, like, if I think back, like prior to streaming services, if you had asked me which old TV I watched the most, it would have been I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched. Those would be the shows that I'd be like, no, I know those. Those are my old TV shows. What's your history with I Dream of Jeannie? Let's start with Travis.
I remember I Dream of Jeannie, but I definitely would conflate. My memory is very mixed with Bewitched.
Yeah.
They occupy a very similar space in my brain. But I enjoyed watching it when I did. It was one of those just fun sitcoms that would be on that I didn't really pay attention to, but I did at the same time. And like most young heterosexual boys, Barbara Eden was a conduit into manhood for me.
Some people it's Jessica Rabbit, other people it's Barbara Eden. Pick your poison.
It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But watching it, it did remind me of the tone of the show. I actually even went back and watched the pilot episode, because I was just very curious how this blonde haired, blue eyed lady was a genie from somewhere near Russia. And when she comes out of the bottle in the in the pilot episode, she's speaking Persian,
Mhm.
I believe. Before he wishes that she spoke English, and then suddenly she speaks English, and there we go. We've got a show. Um, I also had a lot of fun in this episode. We'll talk about later with some of the guest stars.
Yes.
Hmm.
How about you, Steven?
Oh, I loved this show. This show is like pairing Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie together. I think they were running alongside each other for a long time on Nick at Night, and I watched both of them enough to be annoyed when Dick York was replaced by Dick Sargent and they went to color on Bewitched. Like that threw me. I'm like, I don't even like this guy. Who is he? I don't know who he is. But yeah, I Dream of Jeannie. I loved Major Healy. I'm so glad you mentioned him. He's
Mhm.
my favorite person on this show, and I don't know if it's just like he was less uppity, than maybe
Yeah.
Major Nelson was. Like I just really loved Major Healy a lot. He was my favorite character on the show. And I was too young for Barbara Eden to truly be a conduit to manhood. But watching it with adult eyes, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So I now see why people were so upset. Why Standards and Practices may have had a close eye on this show more than other shows. We'll put it that way. But no, loved me some I Dream of Jeannie. Really glad you picked this episode to close us out for Jumping the Shark.
How about you, Adi?
Yeah, this is one of those where I never watched it before, but I knew about it because of again, this is one of those shows that's just a cultural zeitgeist. Everybody knows it because they know it. The theme song, absolutely. Like, I couldn't tell you anything about the show, but if you asked me to hum the theme song, I could immediately do it just because reasons.
And I have been all day.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, this watching this came out of nowhere. I did not remember Larry Hagman was uh Captain Nelson at all. Like
Yeah.
that threw me for a loop. I was like, holy heck, he's young. Good lord. But it was a lot of fun watching this. Like I could see all the gags and just, and of course Barbara Eden is Barbara Eden. So
Mhm.
yeah, this was fun.
So it's kind of like Amelia Bedelia for grown-ups, right? Because she takes things extremely literally, which
Mhm.
is a lot
Yep.
of the problem. Um, so this episode opens and she's talking to Roger, trying to figure out what to give her master for their 5th anniversary of him finding her bottle. Which is not a euphemism.
Is that what they
No,
call it
I don't
these
think.
days?
I don't think. And all right, so the elephant in the proverbial elephant in the room. There's a lot of white guys in brown makeup in this episode, and several words
Oh,
that
yeah.
we do not use in this
Mhm.
year of our Lord 2022. So if
Mhm.
you haven't watched the episode yet, just fair warning, there is some stuff
It was
in
the
here.
'60s, and it was Hollywood, and that's what they did then. And
Yeah,
was it
it's
right?
not
No,
cool,
no.
but we're we're gonna just go with it a little bit. Now, so suddenly out of nowhere, um Jeannie's great uncle Suleiman shows up with his 2 dudes, and he is the moderator. I give them the benefit of the doubt. It's because they are like Suleiman is a genie, right? So that's not like
Mhm.
a real person from the Middle East. It's a
Correct.
whole other thing. And I like to pretend that that's true. And
That's the
so
story we're going with.
yeah, he rolls in and he's like, "Listen, I'm abdicating. You're gonna be queen of Basenji, which is a breed of dog, and um, and that's gonna be great." And Chini's like, "Perfect. That's what I can give my master for our anniversary, a country." Which is, have you ever had somebody give you a gift that actually turns out to be like a job, right? Like, like how you don't give people pets as a gift
Right.
because
Yeah.
that's like a whole job. It's a similar thing we have going on here.
Your
And
dad
then we
buys you a
see,
brand new lawnmower. Like,
yeah, great, thanks. I
thanks.
appreciate it. Um, So then Major Nelson is coming home from, we don't know, wherever he was. And what I love about this is that some of our stock footage is still in black and white.
Yeah,
Mhm.
notice that.
So because this show ran for 139 episodes, 30 of them were in black and white that were later colorized. The other 109 were in color. Um, and, and so he's back, and he's got an assignment to walk around the ambassador of Kasha, which is a cereal, because they have the only refinable vein of Finkilium.
That's what it was.
Finkilium.
Our MacGuffin for this episode is Finkilium.
Yeah,
Mhm.
named after Roy Finkel.
Yeah.
And what I like about this, right, is because Tony's like, I am not qualified for diplomatic missions. Like, I don't know what you're doing. And they're like, yeah, but we promised an astronaut would walk them around. And
Because that's a great idea.
that rang
Mhm.
pretty true, honestly. So the thing is that Kasha, which is a cereal, shares a border with Russia, Afghanistan, and a tiny emirate called Basenji. Kind
Of course it does.
So this immediately sets up our problem for the episode. Because Uncle Suleiman and his two dudes are waiting for Tony in his office. And Tony's like, that's the guy. That's the guy I gotta walk around. This is great.
Never asking if he is, never
No.
confirming that,
Mhm.
just making
Never
the assumption.
noticing that he dresses like the weird lady that's lived with him for 5 years. You know, that's fine. He's just being racist. He's like, no, obviously. Look at them.
Mhm.
What are the
But the best part is,
chances, that this
yeah.
would be in his office? Like, it's
So
got
there's quality Roger here because Roger's outside the door and he knows that, Tony is theoretically about to become Maharaja of Basenji. And Roger's not going to keep it a secret. It's real good. I forget if it's right here or later on when he's like, he says something about like, yeah, well, you'll have a harem and maybe you can get me one. And then we
Yes.
can
Yeah.
double date.
He said that here. This is great.
Oh, it's so good.
I'd forgotten that Major Healy was kind of a player. Like, this is not the
Yeah.
first time he
But it's
references
fine,
women.
though. Like, he's not like he does. Like later, he gets a bunch of letters.
Mm-hmm.
He is fraternizing with people with whom he is not supposed to fraternize.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, he says, "Have you ever tried to kiss a walrus?" And like, but he's not like a
He-
jerk about it.
No.
He's just,
Hey, look, kissing a walrus. He had been in the Aleutian Islands for 3 whole weeks. Okay,
really,
obviously he has limits.
yeah.
He's just, you're right. There's an innocence to the way he approaches this where it's just like, that's just a nice guy looking to have
Yeah.
some company, but not like a
Mhm.
Sooner or
butthole.
later, he's gonna wind up getting married, and so he might as well, in the meantime,
Yeah.
Mhm.
shop around.
It's perfect attitude. Just like, yeah.
So the problem is that Kasha and Basenji are eternal and mortal enemies. And so when
Mhm.
Tony pledges his undying allegiance to Kasha, thinking that this is what will get them the Finkilium that they need for their rocket fuel, Uncle Suleiman's like, okay, sure. Are you sure? You're sure? Okay. Well, congratulations. Now you're a galley slave.
Yeah.
After some general hijinks ensue.
Sure.
Yeah. Dr. Bellows really gets the short end of the stick in this episode. I mean, this is always his thing, right? Is he's always the one that like sees something and nobody else sees anything weird. And they're like, "What, did you see that?" No, nothing. Don't even worry about it.
He's the Gladys Kravitz of this series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he gets beat up pretty hard. He winds up in the wind tunnel, which just rips his clothes to pieces. He's
Which-
having a day.
By the way, they mentioned Major Nelson mentions that wind tunnel gets wind speeds of up to 2,000 miles an hour, and I was like, "Holy hell!" Like a hurricane is like 150.
Yeah.
Well, they needed to come up
Yes.
with some number that would result in his clothes being ripped to shreds. So they're just
Right.
like, just
Yeah.
pick one.
So that they can have
150
Tony
will
in
do that. If
his
you've been
little
in a hurricane, you know.
his little boxers on the bench there.
I love Dr.
Um,
Bellows. He's great.
Oh, he's great.
so Tony's on this ship. We don't know where it's going. It doesn't matter. And he is counting out loud his rowing technique because, as he explains to Jeannie when she shows up, if he gets off, it messes up the other guys, and he does not want to do
Yeah.
that.
You got to keep in sync with everybody.
That's one of the jokes that actually had me chuckle out loud. Like there were very few that hit for me in either of
Yeah.
these episodes, and that one did get me. I'm like, that's pretty good.
It was
That's
pretty good.
Mhm.
The delivery really nailed it.
Yeah.
So he's like, Jeannie, get me out of here. And she's like, I would, I would love to, I would love to. But my uncle Suleiman did this, and his wishes are higher than my wishes, and like his magic is better than my and like I'll let me go talk to him. Yeah, you should do that. Thank you.
Who knew
she
there was
goes-
a hierarchy of genie magic?
Yeah.
Yep.
So she goes to talk to him, and she's like, "Yeah, no, I'll let him out. Sure, I'll let him out if he promises to marry you, and if he avenges the honor of Basenji." And she's like,
Well,
"Great, no problem, sure thing, can do." Well, Suleiman finds out that the ambassador from Kasha is at the base, and he's like, "This is perfect." Um, so Tony is tasked with killing the ambassador, and hilarity ensues with a lot of bladed weapons that appear from nowhere, which is kind of great. Like all of a sudden he's pointing with a sword. He goes to shake the guy's hand, and there's like a dagger, and he's like, "Ah, here, a ceremonial letter opener for you." Which the dude looks at it and it says "Made in Basenji," and he throws it in
Yeah.
the trash.
that was great.
So Suleiman's watching from the trash and this whole thing, and so finally, like the ambassador is like, "Enough is enough. I'm out of here. I'll see you later." Tony's fed up with Uncle Sully. He slams the lid on the trash can, and he's like, "Listen, I wouldn't marry her if she were the last genie on Earth." Yeah, well, it's not Sully that's in the trash can, is it?
No.
Genie.
When did
How
that
could you,
switcheroo
Tony?
happen though? Like I don't
know.
remember
No
seeing
idea.
was that just the plot demands it? Like Genie is now
Yes.
in the trash
Yeah.
can for no reason.
I think maybe, right, because we do see the trash can appear in the space room, which we assume that Suleiman is the one that popped in there to keep stuff going, but we
Mhm.
don't actually. But yeah,
He,
mean,
he
to be
was
fair,
moving that trash can around, kept bumping into whatever blades got put back in the trash can.
Yeah.
it's dangerous in here.
Mhm.
Stop manifesting blades. I don't know what to tell you.
My favorite manifestation of his during that, though, was the pit of tigers
Yeah, in the wind
inside
tunnel.
of the wind tunnel.
Yeah.
Which, first of all,
Which was the
opening the wind
best.
tunnel is like, no, look, it's a wind tunnel. Fantastic, excellent part of the tour.
I love
Thanks.
that the visual effects on that were just amazing. We're just gonna mat like
Mhm.
a National Geographic shot of a tiger in the wind
Yeah.
tunnel.
Like, all right, well, screw you then. I'm gonna go be queen. Goodbye forever. And she blinks out. Tony is distraught. He and Roger run home. He's got flowers for Jeannie,
Mhm.
and he can't find his keys. He's got her bottle on the table, and he leans over and he's apologizing, and he's like, "I didn't mean it. I was fed up with your uncle, and I'm sorry." And he's like, "Wait, her bottle's empty." And then he looks in, and there's a note, and he gives it to Roger to read because he just cannot. And he's like, "Well, I think she really left you this time." End of episode. Heck of
Yeah.
an end of episode.
Mhm.
That's a good cliffhanger,
Yeah.
Crushing, you know.
right? I was like kind of upset. I was like, huh. But I mean, you as a TV viewer, know that you've got like however many episodes a season. Like
Well,
season,
we know
it's not
that
like
now. I wonder though what people in like 60 whatever 9 or whenever this was. I think this was
yeah.
1969. That had to have been a bit of a shock to just
Yeah.
end the episode like
Yeah. I'm just like the TV guide says it's on next week, so probably all right.
Well,
Um
one thing I wanted to address, we kind of brushed past. Major
yeah,
Healy
yeah.
was gonna poison the ambassador from Kasha, like,
Oh yeah, no. And that was another thing that I think got blinked in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Right? Was just like a
Uh-huh.
he gave him
That
well,
came
the
from
guy Suleiman gives him the cup, and he's like, "Give this to him," and it's like this bubbling
Yeah.
concoction. Major Healy's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, no problem. That
Mhm.
sounds
Sure.
perfect. You're trying to murder him, but I mean, maybe this is just soda, And then it burns Major Healy's shoe, all the pieces.
I
Yeah.
But I just was stunned. I'm like, Major Healy didn't even think, but that's fitting to his character. He's
Yeah.
the bumbling
Mhm.
sidekick. I was just
Yep.
still shocked. He's gonna poison a dude. Okay, that would have gone
Mhm.
over real well.
Yeah.
Alaska would have been the least of his worries.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a big problem.
So the part 2 starts with a recap of what happened in episode 1.
Mhm.
And so once he realizes that Jeannie is gone, he tries to talk, like he and Roger try to talk him into, this is great. This is exactly what you've wanted. This is what you've been trying for 4 seasons to do.
Yeah.
It's like get her to not be a problem anymore. Which before we get too much further, in season 2 there was an episode in which Tony learns that if a genie gets married, they lose their powers. And he
Ooh.
winds up thinking that this is a solution because now she will not be able to perform magical hijinks. And there's a whole thing where some other magical creature shows up and shows Genie their future if they do this, and it's a whole thing, and so they wind up not getting married. That whole thing gets ignored completely.
If you if you read about this show, you quickly realize that they didn't care about their
No.
continuity or their background because it
Yeah.
changes constantly
Yeah.
anyway. Like
And by the time we got to hear, like I said, the writing was on the wall. This is
Mhm.
let's just wrap it up, kids. We're out of here. We're done here. And so now he's like, this is great. And then he starts checking the empties under the sink to make sure that she didn't just pick
Get in the
another
wrong
bottle.
Because she can do that, right? That's been an established thing where she just can blop in one bottle or another bottle or whatever, right? Am I misremembering that? I feel like she's gotten to another bottle before.
I feel like yes, that has happened, but I didn't watch enough episodes and I don't have a good enough memory to know for sure.
I appreciate you agreeing with me one way or the other, Travis.
Either
But
way,
I-
there is abundant amount of bottles in this house this particular episode for them
Well,
to
I mean,
check.
because you got to take them down to the packy to get your deposit back. So it's not like
Yeah.
you just put them out every other week in the bins.
It's
You gotta take 'em down.
1969.
True.
Like they didn't have
Been
as many.
gone.
They still had their potato chips in tin cans. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we're not at the plastic age yet. I mean, we're there, but not as prolific.
Yeah. And so he gets Roger to also go check bottles. The number of bottles, like a vaguely genie-ish bottles, your narrow-necked, wide-bottom bottles and other vessels in this house is it's high. So he starts looking at them. The best is like he's like eats mints out of a tin. He's checking the couch cushions.
Yo,
Like,
where all the big bin where all of the umbrellas are and everything,
Yeah.
dumps that
Just
out and
dumps them
looks in
out.
there.
I really love that
Um,
they dumped out the peppermint tin because it made me go, oh, this is what the generation before me really just had tin cans full. Because my grandma always had that. And now I'm like, Major Nelson is a middle-aged gentleman and he's got mints in a can. It's just what they did.
Mhm.
And also I took note of his decor. Like we can't go very far without discussing the problems with 1960s era coloring and early 70s. Like green carpet, wooden
Yeah, that's
everything, yellow, just green and yellow everywhere. Like, and then that one, did you guys notice the one bright blue chair someone just sat in the
Yes.
foyer?
Mm-hmm.
Like, didn't match anything. It was like a space age chair. It's like Jeannie brought that with her when she came in. Like, look at this magic chair. Then
She
who
got it
said
from NASA.
what
Space
prop guy sat that there and went, this will not cause any inappropriate contrast at all. It'll look great.
It's the prop guy that did it when they were in black and white and didn't think about it when they got to color.
Yeah, they just let it go.
That is
They're like,
not a bad
they're so used
theory.
to seeing it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know,
they
you
did
just
use a
don't
lot of
know.
bright blues in black and white because it wasn't about
yeah.
the color of something. It was about the shade they were going to get. So maybe it could be something to that, Audie. Thank you for making that make sense because I was struggling.
You're welcome.
I have a weakness for some mid-century modern, so I don't think this is something I probably like empirically should.
I didn't say I didn't like the blue chair. I just didn't think it made sense
Just being
with
in
the
general.
rest
No, it
of the
doesn't.
decor.
No, shag carpet though can go right out.
Oh
Mhm.
Ugh.
yeah. It gets
Um,
crunchy after a few years.
Yeah, it's not good.
Ugh.
Because if you grew up in the 80s, like many of us did here, someone you knew had shag carpet in their basement,
Oh yeah.
which was not a
Oh,
place that you
yeah.
ever wanted shag in the first place. And by the
No.
80s, it was not a good time.
Walking
No.
around here and you go,
And you're like,
what is that?
Those are chips from 1973. Don't even worry about it. It's a miracle any of us got this far, honestly.
Yeah, oh boy, we can survive
Um,
anything. We made it through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We're good.
Mhm.
Um, one of the places he looks is in the ketchup bottle, which explodes in his face. Which
That
is
was a
pretty
great gag.
funny.
It's
It
so
was
And
a
then he
great.
great,
went-
wonderfully
one-
telegraphed gag too. Like,
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah,
it
yeah,
coming,
you
and I'm
know.
like,
it
oh
was
yeah.
just- Mhm. And then he gets his hand stuck in, I believe, a Coke bottle. Or it's the ketchup bottle. I don't know, whatever. He's got his hand stuck in it and he's yelling for Roger to come help him. Meanwhile, Dr. Bellows has shown up to ask them to like come on, come back. We're gonna fix this. Come on back. Let's fix this. And Tony, not thinking, salutes, smacks himself in the forehead with the bottle, and passes out.
Can we
That
stop
was
for
my
a
favorite
second?
one-two punch gag.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The thing that stood out to me, and I couldn't help but notice it, is that when he walks into the room, there's no longer ketchup all over his eyes. It's been
Yeah.
cleared out to the
Uh-huh.
point where you could tell that he put on safety goggles and then they splattered it in his face because it's a perfect outline of a set of like construction worker safety goggles, and then he could take it off and he's just got it like right where it wouldn't
Mhm.
be. It was perfect. I felt like a detective. It's like I know how they did that. It was I can watch. I'm a splatter scientist. Look at me. I know how this works. Yeah.
And so he's clearly unhinged. Everything's a mess. They bring him in and they're like, "Look, you made such a mess out of this. We can't even make fuel. You know what? You're going to Alaska to watch for satellites. And Roger's going with you because I'm sure he did something. He did almost poison a man.
Yeah.
I suppose we did cover that. Meanwhile, in Basenji, which is a kind of dog, Jeannie is very sad because she misses her master, who she loves, who she's loved for like 5 years, and she misses him. And she's finally like, "Well, I mean, fine. Like, let's just do this, I guess. Like, great. I'll get married. I'll be queen, and everything will be great. I don't need no man except for the husband that I have to marry. It's fine." And so they're gonna do the riddle of the box, which, guess what's in the box? Marry Jeannie. Get it wrong, get beheaded.
It's a great game.
Big stakes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Basenji game shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in an igloo somewhere in the Aleutian Islands, 3 weeks later, the boys are having a time. It's cold. They're like igloos are much nicer than that, but and not that cold. Fine. Um, so he's got Roger has gone to get the mail. He's like, also, I set up dates for us. Don't even worry about it. Um, I've got the mail. And so Roger's got like 4 letters from different women. The Queen of Basenji is going to be choosing a husband and getting married, and
Hmm.
it's going to happen on Wednesday. It's like, I, did Jeannie send him this?
I couldn't figure out where that came from.
I
There
guess
was
slipped in
no,
somehow.
yeah, it was weird.
I like to think it was Jeannie, right? It's like sending your ex your wedding, your like engagement announcement. You're like, I'm doing great,
Yeah.
thanks.
Eat
I
a
don't even
butt.
think about you that I sent this to you in Alaska where I didn't know you were. Don't even
Also,
worry about it.
apparently, the punishment for nearly killing an ambassador from a small country is 3 weeks in the Aleutian Islands, and then
Well, it
yeah,
was
you're fine.
supposed
Come
to
on
be
back.
6 months, but because they were able to get the Finkilium from
Mm,
From
an
somewhere.
unknown source.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Genie? I'm gonna pretend it's Genie. I'm gonna pretend this is all way deeper than it is, and not a lot of writers on cocaine going, "Yeah,
Make this work.
fine,
Jeannie's really,
Jean-
really super smart, and she's just been hiding it all these years.
yeah,
Pulling the strings behind the scenes, blinking
yeah."
stuff.
Thank you for the space program, Genie. So this is it. Tony has got to go get her because he loves her. He's always loved her. He cannot let her marry somebody else. He cannot live without her. I'm going. And Roger's like, we're not gonna. By the time we get back, it's gonna be too late. And he's like, we're not going back. I'm just going, guys. I'm gonna steal United States Air Force property and fly it to the Middle East over Russia,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which Rogers a couple of times when it's great, like he's like says goodbye to all of his girls, goodbye career. At one point when they're en route, he's like, firing squad, help me out, anybody? So they do notice that they are flying over Russia, which is not good.
No, especially not in the
No.
1960s.
Or
Right.
now,
Yeah,
or
back
the
then Russia
80s.
was the bad guys. Wait, hold on.
Wait,
Back then?
Hold on, let
hold on.
me
There
check
was
my
like
notes.
a brief period of time. There was a brief period of time when it was exclusively people in the Middle East, but we're back to Russia now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood is like, phew, because we've got a lot of costumes already. We do
Yeah.
not want to do this again.
If they just waited a few years to make Red Dawn, they would have been like remake it. They would have been fine. You didn't have to switch
Yeah.
countries. You know.
Um, so the day of the riddle has arrived, and there are no suitors because I mean Barbara Eden's hot, but is she beheaded if you guess if you don't guess what's in the box? Mm,
I don't know that anyone's hot enough for
what I'm
me to.
saying, right?
Yeah, no. The
Yeah,
beheaded
that's
Like,
part.
if it's life or death of a loved one,
Sure,
maybe.
maybe.
But I mean,
But
I also
risk beheading, maybe get some strange. I don't. No.
also appreciated that Basenji didn't try to make any other people blonde or blue-eyed to fit in with Genie at all.
no.
No, they
yeah.
just grabbed whoever they could off the street and put them in
Yeah.
costume.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Including the
did.
guy who played the ambassador from Casa the last
Oh
episode.
yeah. So the ambassador from Kasha was wearing a suit and a turban, and the turban was still very shiny, but at least it was not all the beads
Right.
and
Yeah.
everything. It's okay. So Tony shows up and he's like, I'm doing the thing. I want to marry her. I'm doing it. And they're like, okay, but we're going to cut your head off if you're wrong. He's like, I don't care. I love Jeannie. Ba ba ba. And she's like, you don't have to do this. It's like, I do. Great. So he guesses that it's an ingot of Finkilium.
That was a good
And
guess.
I- and they're all like, no.
No.
Now, we never find out what's in the box. It could have
Nope.
been. My thought was, like, when I watched it through the first time, I'm like, oh, well, Jeannie's just gonna blink an ingot of Finkillium in there and
Yeah.
then he'll be right.
I,
No,
yeah.
no, he goes
Nope.
to be beheaded. Um, and then she blinks him away at the last second. And she tells her uncle, listen, I'm not going to be queen. I'm going home with my master. That's how it's going to be. We're going home. Um,
Blink.
blink. And so that he, so Tony's, back in his house, right? And he's like, because he was about to, the axe was about to come down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she blinks back into his arms, which was really cute. And she's
Mhm.
like, "You love me," which that's a good one. I'm a fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
Um,
worked.
and he's like, I gotta get to NASA. Can you blink me? I gotta get to NASA." And she goes with him. Nobody knows she exists, right? And he's like, oh, "You're here, and we're here, and your dress is weird. Fix that." And she's like, "Oh yeah, cutest little shirt dress mini skirt thing." And he's like, "Yeah, that's fine." It could not have been shorter.
No,
No.
No.
impossible for it. If she sits on some
Possible.
bleachers, she's gonna be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
um and so Dr. Bellows and I don't know who, I forget who the other guy,
The
actually
general.
the general was there, right? He's like, "Oh, this is my fiance." Jeannie doesn't know this. Jeannie figures, he was just doing it to get her bet, whatever. We don't need to mess up the status quo. But no, no, they're engaged. And then they realize that they forgot Roger
Yeah.
back in Basenji, which is a kind of dog. And she's like, "Get Roger." Like, cuz they're like, "Where's we just got in, you
Mm-hmm.
know." He's like, "Weren't you over Russia?" No. No,
Obviously
cuz
not. We're here.
presumably the plane is
I was
still
gonna say the plane's still
in
there.
Senji, but
Yep.
don't even worry about it. Um, and so he's like, bring back Roger." So she brings back Roger, who was about to get his head cut off
That poor
for being
Axeman.
Yeah,
Roger.
he had
He didn't
one
get any
job.
satisfaction.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so Roger immediately tries to hide Jeannie, right? Because as far as he knows, protocol is she doesn't exist.
Right.
It's like, no, 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 this is fiance. I thought you knew her. It's like, oh, yeah, new haircut. I didn't. And so then the general's like, "Well, they've been gone for 3 weeks. I'm sure that Major Nelson wants to greet his fiance properly."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Practices you. Ugh.
Look, they got rules.
Um, yeah. And so like the general and Dr. Bellows go walking down the hall talking about like, this is gonna be good for him, he'll this'll level him out, right? He'll be dependable and even keeled. Meanwhile, Jeannie blinks them out. They turn around and they're gone, and Dr. Bellows loses his mind. He's like, "They couldn't have been gone that fast. I don't know where they went." Ba ba ba. End of episode.
This
Yep.
the end of. I didn't really notice this until the very end, but Dr. Bellows has a British accent. Like he has a
Yeah.
non-rhotic way of speaking. He lets his R's kind of just fall over
Mhm.
there. Why? Is he British man, or is this just classically trained acting in 1969?
It's NASA, but we
Yes,
can't
is
give
the
him a
answer.
German accent. I
Yeah.
don't. I
I
mean,
guess.
Yeah.
that's Project Paperclip. I don't know.
Weirded me
I don't
out a little
know.
bit.
Yeah. No, you're right. I don't know that it's just it's that upper class thing.
That's what it
Mhm.
is.
Which is
Hoity
funny because
toity
he's from
Floridians.
Brooklyn, New York. Like it's not like he's from some other country. He's
Oh, wow.
American. He's just putting on airs.
He just won it
Everyone
because
in
he's
the
a
show was
doctor.
American. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
he's
Let's be real.
supposed to play
Everyone,
an intelligent man.
sure,
Yeah.
but everyone in the show is American, including the Maharaja of Basenji, which is a kind of dog. Um,
Uh,
so who amongst you realized who that actor was during the episode? And did you get my joke?
I
got your
get your
joke because
You
joke.
got your
looked
joke
at it
like
after.
once
Because it
you
was
said it.
yeah, it was Jackie Coogan.
Uncle Fester.
Uncle Fester played Suleiman.
Mhm.
And it was during the second episode where I'm like, that face
Mm-hmm.
behind that bad that bad facial hair looks familiar to me.
See, I had that feeling the whole time too, and then I saw his name, Jackie Coogan. I was like, why does that sound so stinking familiar? And then I looked him up. I was like, oh, that's why.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had Jackie Coogan playing Suleiman, and Frank Duvall played Amir Hamed El Yahman.
Yeah.
So these people
job
were
with that.
not they're not Middle Eastern
No.
actor. Well, that's unfortunate.
Is
No,
it?
Frank
Is it
Frank
like,
Duvall was born in West Virginia.
Okay.
and yeah. Is it me, or were the only actually brown people in this episode in the slave galley?
No,
And
there
the
there
very
was
first guy,
pretty
instead of
sure.
the
the
Thai
very first
guy.
guy, she blinked.
Oh well, yeah.
Oh yeah,
the tie.
Yeah. That
Mm.
one
that was a
one
joke
got me.
that
Mhm.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow, we're gonna get
Thai
right
guy.
into it, aren't we? We're gonna blink in a Thai guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Thai
I
guy,
did.
and then Roger said it's like half of a Siamese twin. I was like,
I
oh
was like,
my
no,
god,
I did. I
holy
glossed.
crap!
Yeah, it's not great.
Like-
So I have a funny story about I Dream of Jeannie that's like super tangential. But I'm gonna tell it anyway. So one of my mom's friends, her name is Ginny. Her American name is Ginny. She's from Taiwan. And so she was working on an American base it must have been the late 70s, early 80s, right? And so then you had to have an American name if you were working on the base.
Right.
And so they asked her what her American name, what she wanted her American name to be, and she said Ginny. And so I forget how the real story came out. I think my mom was like just asking her, how she picked her name or whatever. And she said it was because she wanted the name of the pretty lady from the bottle. She wanted to be Genie, but she because of the way the language works, like she actually cannot hear a difference between Ginny and Genie. So she told them her name was Ginny.
That's
So I
pretty
thought that
great.
was like real
Nice.
cute, but that was going to be her American name, and I was like, oh,
That's
that's pretty
good.
precious.
I have to
love it.
admit, before watching this, I never paid any attention.
refused to marry him. He put her in the bottle for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
But then, and like for the first couple of seasons I was reading, like they very much made it where she had magical powers, but her family did not. Which her family apparently was still alive 2,000 years later.
Without
then-
magic. Amazing.
Right, and
Yeah.
and all of that. But then now here, it's her great uncle is also a genie, and can do magic.
Yeah.
With his 6'7" bodyguards that he had.
Mhm.
That was
Well,
huge.
so part of the problem, right? So part of the reason that they wanted them to get married was because of Bewitched, because Samantha and Darren were married, and
Mhm.
that was the whole thing. And like when you look at how good Samantha's family is in Bewitched, which we will definitely get to at some point, right? Like because her
Mhm.
mother is incredible, her uncle
Yes.
is just perfection.
Yep.
And so I think that like part of it is like, oh, well, more magic is more better for the
But
for the lol.
it's that thing where they retcon in all this stuff about her always having magic and the family having magic and her
Yeah.
evil twin sister and all that. And then when they made the movie I Dream of Jeannie 15 years later that came out, they went back to the original story. So
Yeah.
it's like they couldn't even keep their retcons straight. They were retconning their retcon.
Which I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but I do kind of like going back to the original a little bit in that, because like at some point you're just changing stuff just to fill
Mhm.
26 minutes.
I think you're missing that this was the original multiverse. I Dream of Genie. You think we're seeing all one timeline in one universe? No, this is mix and match.
That's
So
fair.
yeah, that's my theory.
Well,
Every blink is a different universe.
It branches every time you blink. So happens when you
Well
screw with
played.
reality. We haven't even discussed the great TV event that is the belly button law. that this show brought about. Because this is one of
Mhm.
the pieces of trivia that showed up. You remember Nick at Night? They would have these commercials, and the commercials would be like, "This is a cool fact about this old show," or whatever. And I used to love this one, that Barbara Eden's belly button could not be shown on screen because that would be
Mhm.
too lewd, and she'd get fined when it happened. Because I think there was like 1 or 2 episodes where her belly button was out, and they were like, "No, no, no." I mean, to me, we went from Laura Petrie and Dick Van Dyke got to wear pants. That was a fight.
Mhm.
Now we're fighting
Oh,
for
yeah.
belly buttons, but we're losing that battle. What would the people who ran standards and practices in '66 think about today's television? They just pass out dead,
They would
immediately.
not make it through the first episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, yes. Actually, yes, they would definitely, but at least by the end, they're over. Or they start to like,
No,
what
they would-
show is Naked and Afraid? That title can't even be in the show. What the
No, just be aneurysm after aneurysm. And they'd just be dropping like flies.
grabbing their pearls until they choke themselves to death.
So this is I did pick this because it does show up on the list of things of jumping the shark. Um and it is technically the wedding episode that they list, but the wedding episode is like not like it's just a wedding episode. Like there's nothing particularly like this is weird, and there's a lot that happened in this episode. The wedding one, like they just get mad, like hilarity ensues because you can't photograph a genie. Um
Nice.
so that gets fun. There's a lot of stuff where so nobody liked that episode. Like the people that made it, they hated doing it. Barbara Eden only liked it because uh Jeannie gets around the photography issue by blinking in the mannequin that they were using to hold her wedding dress to take her place. Like she animates the mannequin to look like her so that they can take pictures. And so
Okay.
she basically walks like a robot down the aisle, and so she thought that was fun. But it's not a great, and like nothing happened, right? Because I'd read the thing about like, oh, genies lose their powers, and so I was like waiting for that, right? Like for them to like kiss at the end of the wedding, and then she suddenly no, she's fine, she did, and then she
At this
continues to
early in
do
the
wacky
season.
stuff for the rest of the season. Yeah. So that's I Dream of Jeannie jumping the shark by and then she does still call him master after they get married, and that's just kinky.
Hard to break an old
Standards and
habit,
practices, where were you on that?
Mhm. It's one of those where this fits like all the definitions of jumping the shark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's a change in the show's quality. It's weird, just out of place. Like they're gonna get married. All right. Oh, she's got family, and I don't remember if Basenji was ever mentioned before this episode.
It
'Cause
might have been,
these are
but
the
I'm
only
sure they
two-
used a different name.
It might have been, but
That
these
too.
were the only 2 episodes that Jackie Coogan was in. So
Yeah.
her
Mhm.
uncle didn't show up until now as the Maharaja of Basenji, which is
Yep.
a type of dog.
Yes.
I still
Um,
love that he has to abdicate and we get no reason why. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
okay.
just decided to,
He
I
just was like,
think.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Like,
tired.
especially watching it now after seeing The Crown and all the crap that went on in England with that. And you're like, and he's just like, yeah, I'm just abdicating. Whatever.
I mean, if he's a genie and theoretically immortal,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
who's
would
to
just
stop
get
him?
tired of being in charge after a while, right? Like I'd be like,
Sure.
yeah, that was a good 600 years. I'm gonna go do something else now. See you later.
Why not just let the huge tall guy be king for a while? Let him be
Yeah,
Yeah,
Maharaja.
just hand
He
it
can have a good
off.
time.
You can blink him away if you're if you want it back. Just like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, you suck. My turn.
So
Yeah.
real quick though, we did mention how everyone in the episode is white.
Yeah.
Even the people from Basenji and Kasha.
Yep.
However, they at least did not try to affect any accents. And I give them some
Yes.
credit there.
Uh,
Jackie
yes.
Coogan just sounded like Jackie Coogan.
Yes.
And like the big tall dude was just sounded like somebody from New York.
Mhm.
So I was glad about that.
You think they
Yeah.
did that for the social justice aspect, or just because that
No.
takes extra
No,
work?
hell no.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
was
just
like,
a lot of work.
something tells me they weren't like, we must respect the other cultures. Let's not use our
I'm pretty
accents.
sure the first 30 seconds of the show kind of really put a stamper on that one.
Oh yeah, that didn't
Like, I'll
But
give them the
no.
Alaska part because it like we don't use that word, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay. But um, so the one thing about this, right, is because now that people outside of Tony and Roger know about Genie, is that like basically the rest of the season is Genie finally interacting with all of these other people, which gets wild. Um, so yeah, what did we think? Where do we land on this? Who's got an opinion? What do we think about
I
I
mean,
Dream
it
of
still,
was
Genie?
I love I Dream of Genie. I mean, yeah, this episode is not strong, and I'm sure every episode that comes after this was not strong. It sounds like you had a similar problem with me, with Laverne and Shirley. How it's like this episode's before it sucks, but it still kind of sucks. This is before it got bad. But I'll always have a soft spot for this show, and I would, if it was on TV and I was just sitting there eating chips, I'd let it play.
sure. Yeah, I had fun with it, regardless of the fact that it wasn't as good as I remembered other episodes being, but I still like it was enjoyable.
Yeah,
And honestly, I mean, you're like Bill Daly is as Major Healy is the hero of this episode. He's just so
yeah,
great.
yeah. He
Hmm.
carries this episode so
I
hard.
love Miss Major Healy. He's the best.
Yeah, I dug it. It was fun to actually watch an episode of I Dream of Jeannie and actually focus on it.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll watch any more intentionally, but that's what I say with every show because we've got too much junk to
It's
watch
too
anyways.
much.
Yeah, it's too much.
But again,
Well,
if it's on
we could
and
loop around
I
again. We
can
never
watch
know.
it, I would.
Mhm.
So that wraps up Jumping the Shark,
Woo woo.
which was a
Nice.
minefield of a
Yeah,
topic.
it
Hmm.
was a good one.
Yeah. Um, so now, we are well and truly into the spooky season. And
Mhm.
so what better way to celebrate the spooky season than to do spooky TV? And so
Ooh.
starting
Yes.
next week, that's our topic. The next few topics we've decided on because it's our show and we can.
Yeah.
So Travis,
We'll ask
you've
for help when we need it, but we don't
yeah,
need much
Yeah.
help right now. It's okay.
Yeah,
no.
No.
we're good.
Trav, you've got the helm next week. What is our first Halloweeny offering?
So our first spooky episode, we are going to check out the adventures of one Michael Knight and Kit the car. It
Holy
is an
cow.
episode of called Halloween Night, spelled with a K, because
Ah,
every like 3/4 of the episode titles have night in them in some way, some
of
pun
course.
on night. So it'll be Knight Rider. It is season 3, episode 5, I believe. I have to check my notes again.
Yes.
Season 3, episode 5, called Halloween Night.
I've
And
never
it is
watched an
available
episode of Knight
on
Rider. I'm ready for this.
Oh, you're in for a
Oh.
treat. It is available to
Nice.
stream on Netflix, so it is very
Alright.
easy to find.
Awesome.
Psyched.
So yeah, I can't wait. This
Oh.
was I had if you remember Big Wheels,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Oh
had
yeah.
a Knight Rider Big Wheel, and
I was
I
so
would
jealous of
ride
that
that.
one.
Yeah, it had the handbrake on it,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
the house that we were living in at the time was in the downtown area, and I rode it up and down our block, and it was just the solid plastic wheels, and so all you heard was that sound on concrete up and down the block
Yeah.
all day on the
While
sidewalk.
while you're sitting there humming doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo,
Oh yeah, oh I
doo-doo,
loved it all
doo-doo.
the time.
Anybody else picture tiny Travis still with the beard
Yeah,
though?
he's still got the beard. Just
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Right.
perfect.
Anyway, um, if you want to get in contact with us, because I have a feeling that nobody did, and we wish that you would. You can tweet us at those days show. You can email us at those were the days show at gmail.com. Maybe.
Correct.
Yes. Look at
Good
And you
that.
job.
are also correct in that we got no responses this week. So
Dang
send us
it.
emails. We want to hear from
People.
you.
Talk to us
People,
about
come on.
old TV. Cringe with us about jokes that shouldn't have been made in 1969, let alone
ever.
And if you're a fan of the Discord, twodorks.net/Discord will put you in our Discord server where we post forum posts about each of these episodes. You can give us your thoughts there and hang out at the same time. I know you work a computer job where you sit there all day. Get in the Discord. Do it.
Got it.
Yes.
You're not doing anything else. Get in here.
You're not working. Browsing Reddit. Get in the Discord.
Yeah.
It's much more fun in the Two Dorks Discord, I promise you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It is.
So next week, Knight Rider, Halloween night. Very excited. In the meantime, for me, for Travis, for Audie, and for Steven, thank you for listening. And we'll see you next week.